Imagine a place that isn't just, a spot on a map, but it's the actual engine room for an entire G7 country.
Mm.
We're not just talking about a province, we're talking about the economic heartbeat of a nation. Today, we are tearing into a guide from Dara Immigration Services, and we're doing a deep dive into the massive, complex, and, let's be honest, incredibly expensive world of moving to Ontario in 2026.
It really is massive. And calling Ontario just a province, it almost feels like an undersell.
Right.
I mean, you look at the raw data, this one region, it generates nearly 40% of Canada's entire GDP.
Wow.
And it attracts almost 50% of all new immigrants. So when people say they're moving to Canada, well, statistically, they usually mean they're landing right here.
That's a staggering number, though.
Yeah.
Half of everyone coming into the country heads to one province.
Huh?
That explains the traffic, which I know we're going to have a therapy session about later.
Oh, we will.
But let's set the stage. Our mission today is pretty specific. We're looking at this guide to help you, the listener, figure out if this gold standard for careers is actually worth the price of admission. Because, let's be real, that price is steep.
It is steep. We're essentially weighing opportunity against cost. It's a classic risk-reward scenario,
Mhm.
On one side, you've got the highest concentration of Fortune 500 companies in the country. But on the other, you have a housing market in the Greater Toronto area, the GTA, that is, well, it's consistently ranked among the most expensive in all of North America.
It's the land of contrasts,
Yeah.
right? You've got these shiny skyscrapers in Toronto, and then you drive a few hours north and you're in a canoe
Right.
in the middle of this vast wilderness.
Exactly.
But before we get into the geography, I want to unpack the why. Why are people still flocking here if the rent is lethal? Is it just momentum, or is there something specific going on?
It comes down to access and aggressive recruitment. As of 2026, the population is hovering around 16 million people. So that's a huge internal market. But for you looking to move here, the most critical piece of info in the Dara Guide isn't about population. It's about the human capital priorities stream of the OIMP.
The OINP, that's the Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program. I feel like immigration is just a soup of acronyms, but this one sounds like the golden ticket.
It's vital. And the human capital priorities stream is interesting because it sort of flips the script.
How so?
Usually you apply to a place, but with this stream, it's more like a headhunter model. The province actually scans the Federal Express entry pool and picks out candidates without a job offer if, and this is the big if, they have specific skills in tech or healthcare.
Hold on, let's pause there because that sounds a little too good to be true. You don't need the job offer in hand first. You just need to be the right kind of nerd.
In a manner of speaking, yes. It's like algorithmic headhunting. The province knows it has a shortage of, say, software engineers or registered nurses. So instead of waiting for those people to find a company and go through all the hurdles, the province just taps them on the shoulder directly from the pool.
So you're just sitting there in the pool minding your own business and Ontario slides into your DMs.
Effectively, yeah. They issue what's called a notification of interest. And it's a game changer because it bypasses that whole Canadian experience catch-22.
Oh, the classic, can't get a job without experience, can't get experience without a job.
Precisely. This just cuts right through that.
That changes the calculus a lot.
Ah.
But let's play devil's advocate. Just
Yeah.
because they invite you doesn't mean you could afford to live there. Let's talk about the physical reality, because I think people outside Canada just hear Ontario and they picture Toronto.
And that's a huge mistake.
Mm.
The guide highlights this divide so clearly. You have southern Ontario, which is this dense industrial agricultural powerhouse. That's where all the people are, the factories, the traffic jams.
Right.
But then northern Ontario is a different planet. We're talking vast forests, mining, true wilderness, huge geographically, but very sparse population-wise.
And for our listener wondering about their wallet, what's the baseline? Because tax is a huge part of the Canadian surprise.
The baseline wage is decent, but yes, the taxman does take a big cut. The minimum wage is over $17.20 an hour. But then you have to factor in the HST, the harmonized sales tax, which is 13% on almost everything.
13% adds up so fast. You buy a laptop for $1,000, you're paying $1,130.
Exactly. A $100 dinner is $113 before you even tip. And that brings us to the biggest decision any newcomer has to make. The guide frames it almost like an investment. Do you invest in high rent for high access, or do you, diversify into a smaller city?
All right, let's get into that.
Yeah.
I like to think of this as a city showdown, or a choose your fighter kind of thing. You've got the heavyweights and you've got the up-and-comers. But I want to challenge the idea that Toronto is the automatic winner.
That's the right attitude. So let's start with the heavyweight champion, Toronto and the GTA.
The vibe is it's undeniable. The guide calls it the most multicultural urban region on Earth. You've got over 200 languages spoken, TIFF, Chinatown, Little Italy. It's fast-paced, it's cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
But is it worth the squeeze?
Well, it depends on your industry. It's the financial engine of the country. So if you're in AI, cybersecurity, fintech, the guide notes that senior roles can push past $150,000.
Go.
The Mars Discovery District is this massive innovation hub. If you need to be in the room where it happens, Toronto is the room.
Okay, but let's do the math. I'm making $150K, that sounds great, but then I look at the rent.
And here comes the arch factor. The average rent for just a one-bedroom apartment is listed at over $2,650.
$2,650 a month for a one-bedroom. That's over $30,000 a year after tax, just for a roof.
Correct. And that's the average. The nice units downtown are closer to $3,000, maybe $3,200. And if you're dreaming of buying a detached house, you're looking at an average price of over $1.5 million. It's out of reach for most people.
So you are paying a massive premium for access, for being at the center of it all. But if you're working hybrid or remote, does that value prop still hold up?
And that is the question driving people to contender number 2, Ottawa, the capital.
Totally different energy. If Toronto is chaos and ambition, Ottawa feels like steady government work and jogging paths.
It is. The guide describes it as clean, family-oriented. You've got the Rideau Canal, skating in the winter. It sounds lovely, almost pleasant.
But what's the catch?
The catch is what I call the bilingual ceiling. Since it's a government town, a lot of the secure federal jobs require you to be bilingual English and French.
And not just conversational French, right?
No, you need to pass tests. Plus, you often need citizenship or permanent residence for the security clearance on those roles.
So if you just landed and you only speak English, the main employer might have a wall up.
It might, yeah. But Ottawa has a huge tech sector, especially out in the Canada Tech Park. Software is big there, and the private sector is much more open. They don't care if you speak French, they care if you speak Python.
And the cost? Is it actually cheaper or just Toronto light?
Toronto light is a good way to put it. Average rents are around $2,100. Still pricey, but you get a bit more breathing room. You might actually get a den for that money.
Okay. Now contender number 3. This one's interesting. Everyone keeps calling it Silicon Valley North. Kitchener-Waterloo.
It's a fascinating spot. It's driven by the University of Waterloo, which it churns out world-class engineers. You have massive tech giants there. Google's got a huge engineering HQ, open text, plus a big insurance sector.
So if you're an engineer who wants to build cool stuff but hates the idea of paying $3,000 for a shoebox in Toronto, this is the play.
Ideally. But, success has a price. Because of that tech boom, rents in Waterloo have shot up to around $2,000. It's getting more expensive, but the vibe is different. University town feel, not a big metropolis.
All right, let's do a quick rapid fire on the other options, because Ontario is a big place. I've heard a lot about Hamilton. It used to be called the Hammer, super gritty steel town, but now it's the Brooklyn to Toronto's Manhattan.
That is the perfect analogy. Hamilton is going through this massive gentrification. A lot of artists and young families priced out of Toronto moved there. Rents are around $1,900. Still industrial, but a growing culture scene and great health sciences jobs.
Okay, what if I want to be near the U.S. border? Yeah. Pop over to Detroit for a game.
Then you're looking at Windsor. It's an automotive hub, very tied to the U.S. economy. Rents are much more reasonable, around $1,550.
And what if I really, really like snow? I'm in mining.
That's Sudbury, the northern hub. Rents are about $1,400, so it's very affordable. But you have to be ready for the climate and the isolation. We're talking average January temps of -13 Celsius compared to Toronto's -3. It's a severe winter.
So pick your poison. High rent, high competition, or snow. But seriously, once you pick a city, you have to survive the move. Let's talk logistics. Specifically, healthcare. This is where people get confused.
And this is where the guide has some surprisingly good news, but we need to be careful with the details. Historically, this was a huge pain point because of the waiting periods.
Right, the dreaded 3-month wait where you basically have to wrap yourself in bubble wrap.
Exactly. Well, that's gone. The guide highlights a critical policy change. Ontario has waived the 3-month waiting period for OHPP, the Ontario Health Insurance Plan.
So practically, I land at Pearson Airport and I'm covered.
Not instantly at the airport, no. You need to be an eligible work permit holder, working full-time for at least 6 months. But once you have your documents, you go to Service Ontario, apply, and you've got coverage. No 90-day wait.
That is huge for peace of mind. But, and there's a big but here, having insurance isn't the same as getting care, is it?
You've hit on the critical crisis point. You'll have an OHIP card, which pays for the doctor. But finding a family doctor in Ontario right now,
Yep.
it is incredibly difficult. There's a massive shortage.
So you're covered, but you're stuck going to walk-in clinics or the ER for basic stuff.
Precisely. You'll likely be relying on a service called Health Connect Ontario to try and get matched, but the wait list can be years. So while the financial barrier is gone, the access barrier is very, very real.
And one more thing on that. Prescription drugs are not covered, right?
Generally, no. Not for adults between 25 and 64. That's a shock to a lot of people who think free health care means everything is free. Unless you have employer benefits, you're paying for that antibiotic.
Okay, let's shift to getting around. In Toronto, I'm assuming I'm not driving everywhere. I've seen the parking prices.
You shouldn't even try. In the GTA and Ottawa, the Presto card is your lifeline. It's a tap card for subways, buses, Geogo Transit. You need to master it immediately.
What if I do want to drive? Say I move to Windsor where the bus comes once an hour.
You'll have to navigate the graduated licensing system G1, G2, and then the full G. It's a stepped process that takes time. However, if you're from the US, the UK, Australia, places with reciprocal agreements, you can often just swap your license.
That's a big deal.
Huge. And if you aren't from one of those countries, bring an abstract of your driving history. It can save you a year of waiting.
Good tip. And for our tech listeners, there was a specific point in the guide about NOC codes. This sounds boring, but tell me why it matters.
It sounds like bureaucratic fluff, but it is the #1 reason people get rejected. The National Occupational Classification, or NOC code, describes your job duties. If you call yourself a software engineer, but your reference letter describes the duties of a web designer,
The immigration officer will just say no.
reject. Exactly. The titles don't matter as much as the bullet points of what you actually do. You have to align them perfectly.
Okay, we've covered the mechanics. Now for the segment I call Real Talk, the challenges. Let's talk about the housing Hunger Games.
It's a good analogy. The reality in Toronto is that viewing an apartment feels like a high-stakes job interview. You'll show up to an open house, and there are 10 other couples there, all fighting for the same one bedroom.
And here's the catch that always gets people. The credit paradox. You land, you have money, you have a job, but the landlord says, "Where's your Canadian credit score?" And you're like, "I just got here."
It's a vicious cycle. Landlords are risk-averse. So to win, you have to aggressively de-risk yourself for them. You can't just show up and say, "I'll think about it." You need your employment letter, bank statements, and often you need to offer more upfront.
More than the standard first and last.
Technically, a landlord can only ask for the first and last month's rent. But many newcomers offer 4 to 6 months of rent up front to secure a place if they don't have a credit score. It's not standard, but it's a common practice to win a bidding war.
That's a massive amount of cash to have on hand. We're talking $10,000, $15,000 just to get the keys.
It is. And remember, security deposits for damages are actually illegal in Ontario. If a landlord asks for a damage deposit, that's a huge red flag. But first and last is mandatory.
Got it. Now, let's talk about the soul-crushing reality of the commute. Because people look at a map and say, "Oh, I'll live in Milton and drive to Toronto. It's only 40 kilometers.
Do not trust the kilometers, trust the time. The 401 highway is one of the busiest, widest highways in North America, and it is, for all intents and purposes, a parking lot during rush hour.
The guide calls it a commuter route, which is a very polite way of saying hell.
If you decide to live in the suburbs to save $500 on rent, you have to factor in the time tax. Commuting by car can be 90 minutes or more each way.
3 hours. 3 hours of your life every day just staring at brake lights.
It's 15 hours a week. That's a part-time job just sitting in a car. It's brutal on your mental health, on your family time.
Wait, what's the strategy?
The strategy suggested, and I strongly endorse this, is to prioritize living near the subway, the TTC, or the Jago train network. Even if the rent is $300 higher, the quality of life you gain back by taking a train where you can read or sleep, it's immense compared to fighting drivers on the 401.
Time is the one thing you can't earn back.
Yeah.
So, looking at all this, the 401, the rent, the competition for doctors, it feels intense. Ontario is not a place for the passive.
It is intense, but that's the nature of an economic engine. The guide summarizes the trade-off perfectly. Ontario offers the highest potential for career growth in Canada, especially in tech or finance. The ceiling is just higher here, but it demands a strategic approach to survive the cost.
It's not a place you can just wing it. You need a battle plan.
You do. And for you, the listener, whether you're an engineer or a government worker, success here relies so much on who you know. The guide mentioned networking groups like Tecto.
Right.
Getting plugged into those communities immediately is vital. You cannot exist in a silo in Ontario. Your next job is probably going to come from a handshake at a meetup, not a job board.
So let's wrap this. We've got the facts, the stats, the scary rent prices. What's the verdict?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it raises an important question for anyone considering the move. We tend to fixate on Toronto. It's the brand name. It's where the glitz is.
It's the cost of doing business there.
Exactly. But the provocative thought I'd leave with you is this. At what point does that cost of living outweigh the benefit of being at the center of the action? Is the smarter move actually one of the secondary cities, like Hamilton or Waterloo?
So, is the Canadian dream better served in a place where you can actually afford a backyard, even if the skyscrapers are a bit smaller?
That is the question everyone needs to answer for themselves.
That gives us plenty to think about. It's not just about moving, it's about strategy. Thanks for taking us through the realities of the Ontario market.
My pleasure.
And thanks to you for listening to this deep dive. Good luck with your plans, check your NOC codes, and we'll catch you next time.